Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Just wanted to make sure that you all can hear me okay and that you
Y-
can see the screen.
Yes, good afternoon.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started for today's Wind Up Wednesday since it is one after 1 o'clock. And we're just going to go over some best practices for prior authorizations for our upcoming blizzard. And then I'm also going to do a little overview of our new PA workflow that we released at the end of October. So I just left a couple slides in here, a little bit about eBlue solutions. I know that you all are eBlue users, so I'm going to go ahead and just skip over those first two. Just kind of talking about what services we provide, benefit verifications, prior authorization, and copay information. So the agenda today is we are going to talk about preparing for the blizzard, and then what you can do during Blizzard to assist us and your own practice. And then I'll be doing a demonstration of the new PA workflow with a couple different instances. So one of the things you can do when preparing for Blizzard is to make sure that you are identifying any expiring authorizations. We have a 30-day look-ahead report that any of your provider relations managers can help you find if you do not know where that is. And then I've included a slide also about filtering our queue so that you can find any of these authorizations that may be coming up and expiring. Some things that you can also do are collect your updated insurance information, reach out to any patients that may be having authorizations that they are getting their infusions in the beginning of January. Make sure that their information staying the same and that you don't need to update their insurance information. Coordinate with the providers and the schedulers in your office. Just remind the infusion teams that are scheduling that, PA is required. It is the beginning of the year, and sometimes those insurances may change. So we want to make sure that the PA approval is on file for them. Ensure any orders are signed, labs are up to date, and any clinical notes are ready for submission. And then also plan your staffing around whether the payer hours are open. There may be holiday scheduling gaps that you may not be able to submit authorizations on certain days. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, any of the days around New Year's that the payers might be closed. So I wanted to talk a little bit about filters in the activity queue. So when you are in the activity queue, there is a PA pre-D completed section that will give you any prior authorizations that have been put in approved, denied, closed, or any of those kinds of statuses. You can actually go ahead and filter by the end dates of the authorizations. If you use the filter and you can do a date range, you can do any of that kind of thing to be able to find your authorizations that might be coming up expiring that wouldn't be included on that 30-day report. During Blizzard, after 1/1, we want to take into consideration, we want to submit re-verifications when the payer accepts. Keep in mind that if the patient has new insurance coming up, that payer probably will not accept the authorization until after 1/1 of 2026. So we want to be mindful of submitting authorizations and making sure that they are when the payer will be accepting. Something to think about is to prioritize any of the risk of your patients. So, any patient that has an infusion coming up early in January, think about reaching out to them and verifying their insurance, making sure that their PA is still valid, really working on those first couple weeks of January to make sure that everything is in place. Lower priority patients would be probably patients that are stable on their continuing coverage and their authorizations might not be ending until February or March. You still want to be cognizant of them, but if they are scheduled out a little bit further, prioritize the patients that are earlier in January. Verify the medical benefits. Some medical benefits will flip at the beginning of the year from being able to buy and bill to having to fill through the specialty pharmacy. So make sure when you are doing new plans that you're reading over the BIs, making sure that everything is in line, and then think about where your product will be sourced from, whether it's going to be buy and bill, specialty pharmacy. And you want to maintain clear communication, not only within your office, but also with patients. Let them know if their PA is in the status of being renewed or if there could be a lapse in their infusion schedule. Providers, notify them of any missing clinical or any payer updates that may be happening. And then the eBlue staff members, be very clear on your requests and make sure that there's any necessary documentation to submit so that there's no delay in submission. The final point is just documenting meticulously, making sure that you're paying attention to anything that may change on the insurance. It might be the same payer, but the group number, plan number, or identification number could have changed. These are things that you could alert us or anyone on your team to make sure that everything's going through properly. So I wanted to talk about the new prior authorization workflow. And so I've given a couple different examples of things that may happen. Our first thing that we're going to talk about is the sponsored drugs with a form that can be filled out on our website. When a BI is returned, you will have a prior authorization section that talks about where it needs to be submitted, any of the information that you need. If the section right here indicates 3 points, the middle point talks about that there is a fillable form on our website, and so we'll be going through that workflow. To use the Start PA button, this is when you will be starting a PA from scratch. It has not been submitted to the payer. Everything, the form needs to be completed, any clinical documentation needs to be added. So that way we can actually get the authorization submitted on your behalf. If you're utilizing the Add Existing PA button, these are cases that have been submitted to the payer, and it could include PA cases that do not have outcomes. So potentially your office has submitted to the payer, but you don't have time to monitor it. So you want to start the case and send it to eBlue so that we can provide consistent monitoring for your sponsored drugs. So here's another view of the BI section where you will come to the middle and you will hit the Start PA button. Notice this is the yellow notifications that there is a fillable form for this one. The new workflow has an informational header on every single page that you go to. It will start as a collapsed header, and then you can open it and find any of the patient information, treatment plan, payer information, and then who the practice it has the patient listed under. To start, you will actually choose, is this a new start or a continuation of care? New start means the patient has not had the treatment previously, and continuation of care is the patient is currently receiving it, so you will need a renewal of the authorization. We've added a loading dose required section where if you check mark this loading dose required, the eBlue Solutions team will submit with your authorization the FDA approved loading dose to go with that medication. The number of visits and units has not changed, but you will indicate how many you are requesting. We have added a new section that you can put the height and weight for the patient. This is just easily accessible free text entry fields for you to be able to see. If you are indicating that the patient needs to be on a weight-based drug, you can put the weight in this section. These are not required. It is just for informational purposes. We've updated the new look of the PA service monitoring. So the first section indicates who is submitting the authorization. If you choose to submit on your own, you would change this drop down to practice, will be the one submitting the PA pre-D to the payer. And then the second is who will be monitoring it. So if you would like eBlue to submit and eBlue to monitor, then you go ahead and you choose those from the drop down. Any steps in our PA process, there is a next button. The PA or pre-D is not actually created to the eBlue system until you complete the case. So as you are navigating through the three sections, you can discard at any point. So if you come through and decide that you don't have all of the information to complete the form or your clinical documentation is not collected, you can discard this PA at any point in the workflow. Here is probably the most exciting part of the new PA workflow is that there is an embedded PDF editor that you can fill out the form. Previously, we had asked for everyone to fill out fillable or text forms that then you would get a preview of the form once it was filled out. Now you can actually see the form as you're filling it out. You can navigate on this form by selecting any of the fields, and then you can click into the fields, or you can utilize your tab button to go to the next field.
What's going on? I'm in a
Some
meeting.
other features that have been
I'm in a meeting.
included
All right.
are that um, on the left side, you'll be able to navigate page to page. You can go through this, and then you can go through the different areas. You can zoom in, zoom out, depending on what you need. There is another area here where you can print the form at this point. You can change it to full screen, and then you can also, if you need to, change it to dark mode.
Good.
Previously, we've asked that the clinical documentation was provided at the beginning of starting a PA. We've now changed it to be the third and final step screen while you are going through the PA process. You will go into the very last screen and click the select files and choose a file from your file manager on your computer. You can also leave comments now while you're creating the PA instead of having to go back into the PA to add a comment for either the staff or anyone. You can indicate what the loading dose is that you need if it's different, if there's anything that the team would need to know, or if you just like to document something on your behalf. Once you've completed all of the steps, you can hit the complete button and this actually will finish out. Just wanted to remind you, even if you've completed all the way up to this point, you can still discard the PA. If you choose discard PA, it will not create in our system.
Discard PA.
So this actually is the final screen giving you the next steps. So depending on what you've chosen in the status monitoring, you can see that eBlue will submit, eBlue will monitor. You can also print out the completed form at this point. And you can also return to the activity screen, which is our main platform. The second workflow that I wanted to go through is starting a prior authorization or predetermination for a non-sponsored drug. This will be a single screen that you will have. You will hit the start button from the BI, and then you will just have different required areas that you will need to fill out. So authorization type, very similar to the initial one. You would choose new start, continuation of care, and if you needed a loading dose. If you are needing the team to submit the authorization, you will need to keep the status in process. And then you can put in here what the requested units or visits that you would like us to submit for you. You have availability to put in the height and weight as well. And I just want to remind you, this is a free text area that you can write in and is not required. It's just more easily accessible information. And then you can also choose your PA services here, and you can indicate who's submitting and who is monitoring. There are now 3 tabs. Previously, we had it on the right side that they were split out into sections. So you can add a PA form. This is located on the BI that you have filled out on your own, and you just select the file and upload here. And then you would click into the clinical documentation tab and add any clinical documentation. I do want to note that your PA form only has availability for 1 upload, but clinical documentation, you can upload up to 15 documents. And then we have the comment area that you guys can leave a comment if needed for the team. This is not required to move on, but it is nice if there is anything that you would like anyone to know. Then you can hit your save button. This will take you back to the activity screen at that point. So the next area is recording an existing prior authorization or predetermination. Next to the start button is the add existing PA. This would be PAs that you have already submitted, whether it has an outcome of approved, denied, or if it's just submitted and you would just like eBlue to continue monitoring, or you would like to use our system for tracking purposes to monitor. So I've gone through the steps here of how you would do it. You would also indicate in this is a required field on all of our screens that we are requesting whether it is a new start or a continuation of care. For the second area, you would put your status, approved, denied, not required if you wanted to record that, or you would put it eBlue review if you would like eBlue to start monitoring on your behalf, or submitted to pay or eBlue is the same status. Authorization number, you can record this. It is required if you choose a status of approved or denied. It is not required if you put it in a status of in process or submitted to pay or eBlue. The number of visits, I always recommend putting in the number that you are requesting. It will be updated to show the number of visits that are actually approved when we put it in. Or if you're putting in an approval on your own behalf, you can put the number of visits or units that's approved. Start and end date is going to be required if you put in an approved status. And then number 6 is your indicator of who is submitting and who is monitoring. There is a section that you can put a copy of the approval form. This area, similar to the PA form, only has one select, but you do have lots of files that you can upload to the clinical documents area if needed, if extra area is needed. And then 8, you can always leave a comment. I do want to point out that once you change the status, it will give you asterisks on the form of any that are required before you can select save. Once you have saved, it will reflect in the prior authorization section of the BI. And so you can choose this detail button to go back into the case at any point. You can also, from the activity screen or the dashboard, re-enter your PA case. Editing a prior authorization or predetermination. So if you've chosen to go through the detail screen, you've gone from the dashboard, you've gone from the activity screen, you will have your header, and it will be a free text, or it will be laid out very similar to if you are creating or recording an authorization. The only area that will be different is you'll want to look in this top right. If you have a button that says edit, that means that the screen is locked and you're not able to access anything on the screen. You will then have to hit this edit button and the buttons will converge to a save and cancel button. So now you can edit anything on the screen. Once you save, it will return back to this edit button and you can close the tab. Previously, every time that you saved something from the PA, it would filter you back to the activity screen, but we've made it so that you can still access and look at the information if you need to go back and edit. As far as the presentation goes, right now that is everything. If you all have any questions, you can post them in the chat right now. You can also reach out to your provider relations manager at any point if any additional training or any questions are needed as well. So Claudia asked a specific question about Capital Blue. Um, as far as authorizations that are submitted prior to that, we really won't know until 1/1 of 2026 whether they'll honor them. So at that point, it is on our radar. I know that one of the provider relations managers had brought it up to me, so we will keep it on our radar to watch out for and make sure that we are seeing that those convert over. Usually when we're doing our every 3-day follow-up on our sponsored drugs, we do come across information like that, and then the team pivots and makes sure that they're submitting to the correct place. If there are any medications that are needed to be added to the list, I would suggest emailing your provider relations manager to ask, and we can let them know. Matilda asked in the chat about a couple medications being added to the list. So provider relations managers should be able to answer any of those questions for you.
Lauren, I will add that as of now, it appears that no new medications will be added ahead of this year's blizzard. But we'll be sure to keep you all informed if that changes. And if you have any suggestions for medications that you'd like to see on the portal, again, feel free to let us know. And the best thing you can do to help get those medications onto the portal is by letting your drug reps know about eBlue Solutions and how it positively impacts your workflow, and have them reach out to us directly about sponsorship on our platform.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Brianna.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I will be in here for a little bit if there are any additional questions that are needed. But I just wanted to say thank you for taking time out of your day, and we look forward to having you continue to use our workflow for Blizzard. Thank you all. Thank you all. Definitely appreciate you guys logging on.